Hello, it's Peter Merrick, and I want to share with you something that I taught my students in planning, financial planning, because I think it's key. Why do most people plan? That's an important question, and it's because they're planning for three scenarios. And what are those scenarios? The scenarios is if I live too long, I die too soon, and I get sick. We need to address that, and we're going to be talking about a process that we can use to address that. That being said, we also have to look at three scenarios. We want to look at the best case scenario, we're going to look at the worst case scenario, and the status quo. And we have to ask the question, because do you know that more important than the answer that you come up with is actually framing the right question? Why? Because that causes you to go down that rabbit hole. And the more you have a process, the more you'll be able to address the best case, the worst case, and the status quo scenarios. You'll also be able to address what happens if you live too long, you die too soon, or you get sick. So let's talk about the process. I think the best process is something called the 6-step financial planning process. And why? Because it doesn't matter the situation that you're in, you can constantly do it, and it's more of a circle. So let me just go through the 6-step process for you. One, you have to identify what you want. I've mentioned that before. What do you want? Where do you want to be? What do you want your life to be? You know what I used to do with my students? I used to say, okay, I'm going to give you a piece of software. But before you actually start playing with this software, I want you to write about the perfect day of you when you're 65 years old. And you gotta remember my students were in their early 20s and maybe in their late teens. And I would say, write that perfect day. Make it the biggest possible. I want it huge. And then what I want you to do is I want you to take the software and show me how you did it. Now, I said if you end up with having a net worth of $20 million, you're going to get a C. And it doesn't really matter because you're an insignificant person. I know that if they fully use the basics starting at assumptions and they basically maxed out the software because I had played with it, they would end up being worth about 5 or 6 to $10 billion. And they'd have to become entrepreneurs, and they would have to sell, and they have to become conscious of tax, and they'd have to be conscious of everything. Now, to this day, my students come back to me. We're talking 15, 17 years later, and they said, you know, that was the most helpful thing that ever happened. Now, I was basing that on the 6-step financial planning process. Now, let me share with what it is. As I would go to my students and I say, tell me about your life when you're 65. You've got kids, you got a beautiful place in La Jolla, California, you got a boat, you travel, you're healthy, you look slim, everything, you've had like an incredible business life, and you look back. So the first thing is, tell me what you want. If everything can work out for you, what would you have? See, the ideal situation. Most of us live in our present. So we basically don't look at what the ideal is. If the sky opened up, the sea parted, what would we have? So identify what you really want. And I have to share with you, the less work you've done on yourself, the more you will lie to yourself. Because what we really want, we don't really actually give ourselves permission until we spent time working on ourselves to realize what's important for me. The things that I really like doing, many other people don't. And you have to become comfortable with that, because each of us are unique, and each of us have our own unique way of expressing ourselves in our environment, because the biggest person that we have to satisfy is ourselves, because the only game we play is the game we play against ourselves. So number one, identify what you want. Now what you have to do is you got to be honest and take stock of what you have. So I mentioned yesterday in another video, I want to go to California. I live in Toronto. How do I get there? What do I have? I don't have a car, I don't have access to a train, and I don't have access to a plane. So I have to then start saying, well, how do I get access to a car, a plane, or a train so I can get there? What else do I need? Who else do I want to bring with me? I need to go and identify what I have. You know, I have the ability, in my case, to talk, to write. You take stock of what you have. So number one, identify what you want and what your intent is. Number two, be honest and look at what you have. Number 3, look at what the difference is and start working backwards. If I want that image, what would I need to do to go and take what I want in the future, the picture that I have in my head, to the reality I have currently, and go backwards and forward. And actually asking that question is so important. And keep on going through this process. And we're going to be talking about that because you want to fill in as many of the holes as possible. Because if you have a plan, most likely you will move towards doing it. But we're going to be talking about that. So now what we've done is we've identified what our ultimate goal is. We've identified our reality. We've identified what we need to do to turn the current reality into the future we want. Now we have to write it down. And we have to go and write down what we've actually identified what our goal is, what we currently have, what we need to do. And we have to have actionable steps. Now, the difference between a goal and a dream is a date. So we have to actually state, this is what we want to achieve, and this is the time we want to do it. We will address if we don't do it in the plan, and we'll go through. A plan means nothing. And number 5 is this. A plan means nothing unless I take action. There's a Chinese saying that says, 1,000-mile journey begins with the first step. You have to implement. So you've identified the goal, you've identified what you currently have, you've identified what you need to do to get from where you are right now to the future, and you've written it down. Now you've taken action. You start implementing it. But life is not clean. Things change. We get sick, we have children, we move. There's so many things that happen in our lives. We have to have built into plan that we will go back. So number 6 is we need to go and have built into the plan that we're going to reassess everything. Remember at the beginning of the video I talked about it's a circle. Because as life changes, things become important to us where we have to address the issues. So let's go back and re-summarize everything we've talked about planning. What is planning? Well, planning is addressing 3 scenarios. The best case, if everything, the sky was open, what would my life be? The status quo, and also the worst case scenario. People who go and deal with insurance agents, wealth managers, the average person, what do they want to address in those when they're dealing with a professional? Well, they're planning for if they die too soon, live too long, or die. We want to have a system that we can actually achieve our goals and to deal with whatever's going to be thrown at us. And the 6-step process is the process I'm going to recommend that you implement for yourself. 1, identify what your intent is, what your ultimate goal is. Number 2, be honest where you are right now. Number 3, figure out what you need to do, what the obstacles are that you have to overcome to go and make your present state into your desired reality, your life goals. Then what you do is number 4, you write it down. Number 5, you implement it. And number 6, you're going to do it again and again and again. And you're going to build this into who you are. Now, many of us need help. So go and seek a certified financial planner, a trusted estate practitioner, someone who can help you go through that process. So you take something that's external and you make it internal. You guys have been fantastic, and planning is going to create your future. I do this every year for myself, and it's done magic. So if we're not friends, please invite me, please follow me, help me grow my presence on LinkedIn. I need your help. Press like. Please make a comment. Tell me whether I'm on track or I'm not on track. I invite it. And share. Like, share, make a comment, follow. You guys have been awesome, and I can't wait until our next video and we talk. Have a great day. You guys are just awesome.